Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. My guest today is probably India's favorite blogger. I would imagine millions read him each week and thousands have bought collections of his blogs. He's now published the most recent, and here it is. It's called Holy Cows and Loose Cannons, the Duffer Zone Chronicles. But this time, it's not a collection of political or polemical columns. These blogs are about our peccadilloes. This means these blogs are much more personal and even at times idiosyncratic. And these are the sort of blogs that appeal directly to the heart of the reader because they seem to be saying things that you could almost say yourself. Joining me to talk about this recent collection is the author, the one and only Avay Shukla. Avay Shukla, this book is a collection of some 50 essays on a variety of different subjects, and in each instance, the Avay Shukla brand stands out. I want to talk to you about some of the most striking comments you've made. In an essay called The Duffer Zone, you write, "It is clear that the Indian side of the LAC is one big Duffer Zone all the way to Kanyakumari." Are you saying we are a nation of duffers, incompetent, ineffectual, and even foolish?
Nice to be with you again, Karan. And what you said about being a nation of stupid people, etc., the buffer zone goes beyond it. You know, it's basically a takeoff on the buffer zone between India and China. But unlike the buffer zone on the LAC, where we don't know whether the buffer zone is on the Chinese side or on the Indian side, the buffer zone within India is pretty clear. It has a geographical connotation as well as something pertaining to the state of mind. The geographical, I would say, is roughly the area north of the Vindhyas, stretching from east to west. It is also known as the Hindu heartland, and it's perhaps no coincidence that this is the area which is the BJP's and the right wing stronghold. It's also the area where our national media is located in Noida, most of it, the mainstream media, television media. But it goes beyond the sheer geographical aspect. It's also the buffer zone is also a state of mind. You know, it's a state of mind characterized by low literacy, high birth rates, and it has certain distinct characteristics which sort of separate or distinguish it from the rest of India, which is mainly the southern portion of India and perhaps the northeast also. If I could list out some of these characteristics, which is what defines what I call the buffer zone, it has an excess of religiosity, specifically and particularly the Hindutva brand of religiosity, which we have been seeing in the last 10 to 12 years. It reeks of intolerance to opinions, ideas, lifestyles, everything, anything you can think of which is part of your culture. It reeks of intolerance. It does not tolerate or accept other forms of language, religion, etc. It is imbued increasingly with Islamophobia. It has a very strong content of regionalism, hyper nationalism, which is all too evident these days. It equates all Muslims with Pakistanis and with terrorists, as the recent statement by by a Madhya Pradesh minister about Colonel Sofia Qureshi illustrates very strongly, as also the trolling which that unfortunate lady, the naval officer's wife, received when she pleaded for communal harmony, or when the foreign secretary himself was mercilessly trolled by the right wing media and the trolls for his announcement of a ceasefire. It equates all questioners, anybody who questions the government or any of its policies, it equates them with uh, anti nationalism or being enemies of the state. The most recent example of that being Professor Ali Khan of
Mahmoudabad.
Muradabad of Ashoka University. And just yesterday, one read that the Supreme Court also has come down very strongly on him, which is totally, extremely unfortunate, because anyone who reads his posts cannot possibly come to the conclusion that he is an anti national. And then finally, the Duffer Zone is characterized by complete gullibility, blind belief, the willingness to accept and believe anything that is told to them. In other words, if I could put it in just one sentence, the Duffer Zone, as I see it, is a complete manifestation and validation of what Bonhoeffer called the theory of stupidity. So you're right, to the extent that we define stupidity in the various facets that I have just detailed. Yes, this is our buffer zone. This is what India has to contend with these days.
India has become a nation of duffers.
Well, not the whole of India, fortunately. Not the whole of India. There are
But much
large,
of India.
there are large swathes of India which are still outside and fighting to retain their sanity.
Are they in danger of losing it?
Sorry?
Are they in danger of losing
They
it?
are, they certainly are. That's what I was coming to. The buffer zone is expanding. Recent events in Karnataka, for example, over the language row, about how how one prominent singer, I think his name is Sonu Nigam, was an FIR was registered against him because he did not sing in Kannada. Just yesterday, we've heard of a State Bank of India official, a lady official, who was also castigated publicly and by the Chief Minister of Karnataka himself for refusing to speak in Kannada. So it's expanding. Unfortunately, it's expanding, and that's not a good sign.
Now, you also say other countries evolve for the better. We have been consistently doing it for the worse and are proud of it. Give me a couple of illustrations that suggest we're regressing, not progressing.
Well, to on a lighter note, Karan, we there is some scientific evidence to show that we are in, and again, this is to be not to be taken literally. Uh, there is some scientific evidence to show that Indians are evolving back into the Neanderthal stage of evolution. Some kind of a reverse evolution could be taking place. You know, the health statistics globally are indicating that Homo sapiens is growing in height. The height of the average Europeans, the Americans, and all has been growing. But a survey by the Jawaharlal Nehru University recently, based on family and health surveys, shows that since 2012, Indians have been growing shorter. The average male has grown shorter by 0.86 centimeters to 1.10 centimeter, and the average Indian female has grown shorter by 0.12 centimeters in the last 12 years.
Okay.
Now, this would indicate that we are approaching the Neanderthal stage, because the average height of the Neanderthal was 5 feet. And so, at least in terms of height, we are regressing. Now, this could be linked to our position on the global hunger index. We are at 101 out of 116 countries, and that could be ascribed to our diet of late, which is not very nourishing. It's a diet which consists mainly of bigotry, hate, and lies, which does not do much for the growth of either the body or the brain tissue. So, on a lighter note, we are regressing biologically. But coming back on a more serious note to your question of two instances where we seem to be evolving for the worse, look at the state of our democracy. We are continuously sliding down the democratic scale over the last few years. We are now a flawed democracy. Just about every international organization which tracks the trend has indicated that we are sliding down on the scale. Now, and it's not just the government or the institutions of the country which are backsliding. Even societal values are going down, which is more concerning because governments change every 5 years, hopefully. But once a society starts regressing in a particular direction, it's very difficult to change or to draw back
Okay.
on that trend. I could give you many examples.
No, don't. I think you've given me sufficient. Let me pick up an example from your book, which I think is particularly telling, but it's also particularly evocative. You say you're particularly angry about Indians who turn their back on our Muslim culture and our Muslim heritage. You write, they have suddenly discovered God and find that he can only be a Hindu. After growing up on Mughlai food, listening to ghazals and qawwalis, conversing in a language that has as many Urdu as Hindustani words, swooning over Dilip Kumar, Madhubala and Wahida Rahman, saying wah wah to the poems of Ghalib and Gulzar, we've now concluded that these are evil influences, that they threaten our Hindu sanskars, and the whole lot must be banished. This sort of Indian really gets your goat, doesn't he?
It does. It makes one angry at one level, and it makes one sad to see a civilization, the civilization that we were, uh, descending to these depths. And I think the cause of this and the fault lies basically in a very fundamental misunderstanding of the Muslim in India. Muslims in India, on WhatsApp groups and other similar forum, are identified with Muslim terrorists in Europe, the radical Muslims in Afghanistan or even Pakistan or in the Middle East, and they are equated. And the fundamental misunderstanding here is that the Indian Muslim is totally different from these types. We are neither radical nor are we militant, and the example of that is the number of Indian Muslims who joined Al Qaeda or the movements in the Middle East were in single digits. You know, and the Our Muslims have been here for the last 5, 6, 7, 800 years. They are fully integrated into the culture of this country, into every nuance of life in this country. They are not they're not people who have been radicalized. They are as Indians as we Hindus. When you define a culture, they are very much a part of our culture, and that is why I referred to Madhubala and Dilip Kumar and etc. That they have contributed to our music, to our art, our literature, our cuisine. In every single form is very difficult. It's a very syncretic culture, and it's very difficult to take out the Muslim part from the Hindu part. We won't have a culture left if we do that. That's what I meant when I said that that it makes me sad. It makes me sad.
Something else that gets your goat and infuriates you is the way residents' welfare associations have started to determine what people in the association must think, how they must live, how they must behave. You write, they are gradually becoming the self appointed gatekeepers of morality, culture, and political discourse. The time is not far off when these busybodies may determine what their members eat, how they dress, to which gods they pray, why they may even insist that all their members vote for a particular party. And my question is, why do members of the association give in to these diktats? Why don't people stand up? Have they lost the gumption to be able to say, I'll be the sort of person I want to be? Who on earth and who the hell is the RWA to tell me what to do?
Ideally speaking, yes, especially as these persons constitute the silent majority in the RWAs and in these gated communities. I've been living in one current for the last what? For the last 13 to 14 years in Delhi and now in Noida. And there is a fundamental, what shall I say, driving ambition with the RWAs. The RWAs basically uh, consist of half a dozen or a dozen office bearers who call the shots. Now, they acquire some limited amount of power because they are elected, and under the Societies Registration Act, there are certain duties and responsibilities which are entrusted to them on behalf of the residents of the gated communities. They are a reflection of our colonial and feudal legacy. Because in India, you give any person a modicum of authority and he starts behaving like a major general.
Actually, Sergeant Major.
Sorry?
Actually, Sergeant Major, that's how Sergeant Majors on playgrounds behave. They trot around thinking they're terribly self important, bullying everyone and shouting
Yes.
at them.
Yes, you give a chap a uniform, whether he is a parking car attendant or a security agent or a gas delivery boy or anybody you can think of. I'm not talking of the official uniforms or the official paraphernalia. I'm talking of these guys, and he immediately starts wielding his authority and beyond the law. And it is this mentality which drives the office bearers of our resident welfare associations.
So we're in danger of becoming a nation of duffers, and the rest of us are born sergeant majors who like to bully and strut around pretending that we're in authority over everyone else. That's a very strange combination, isn't it?
It is, and a dangerous combination. A dangerous combination. I'm coming back to the RWAs. These are a bunch of middle-aged, frustrated middle class gentlemen and ladies who have probably been pushed around all their lives, and now that they acquired this little bit of authority, uh, they misuse it to push others around, and they are and look at what's
But
happening.
can I interrupt to say
Yeah.
this combination of duffers and sergeant majors doesn't make us very likable as people, does it? We either are bullies or we get extremely gullible in our response.
Well, you said it. You said it, Karan. But I would again like to emphasize that uh, this is no laughing matter, because it is assuming dangerous proportions now. RWAs are going beyond the law, beyond the courts, and beyond government laws and regulations, and creating an ecosystem of their own. Now, I'll give you some examples. Of course, you're aware of them. They have started banning students, bachelors, uh, transgenders, gay people, unmarried women, unmarried young men from staying in their societies. And no law permits this. They have started dictating on the kind of food which you can eat, vegetarian or non-vegetarian. I remember it has been happening in places like Gujarat and Maharashtra for some time now, but now it is spreading to the rest of India, where even in cosmopolitan cities, where you have these youngsters coming from all over India, for example, in Delhi or Noida, looking for jobs. They're not married. They won't get. They're not welcome in the RWAs. Look what happened to, you can't voice your opinions, and it is getting very strongly imbued with this Hindutva culture. Look what happened to Manishankar Iyer's daughter. I think it was last year or a year before. She went on a 2-day fast in, I think it was either Jangpura, or yeah, I think it was in Jangpura. She went on a 2-day fast to protest against the manner in which the Ram temple was being consecrated, and she was asked to leave. She was asked to leave. So this is what is happening. The latest which has started in RWAs, I'm noticing, is the insistence of a few people to start building temples within their gated communities, not churches, not mosques, not Buddhist temples, but Hindu temples. And
This,
it is,
can I put it like this? This quest for religiosity, this quest for uniformity, this attempt to bully people into being just like yourself has actually exacerbated in the last decade of Mr. Modi, hasn't it?
I think it started in the last 10, 12 years. It wasn't so bad. I mean, okay, there were a few laws about like dogs and pet owners, etc., etc. But now it is getting into the core of your belief systems, what you believe in, the core of your, or the kind of religion you can practice, the kind of food you can eat, etc., etc. So it is, and that is why it is dangerous. And the reason why it has increased in the last 10 to, or got exacerbated, as you say, the last 10, 12 years, is because the government agencies are not acting against them.
Absolutely. The government agencies are quiet. They may even be conniving to encourage. But you know, one of the essays that stands out in your book is an essay about that film, The Kashmir Files. And this is what you write about the film. The intention clearly is to exhume the ghosts of 30 years ago, reopen wounds which were healing, to keep alive not the patient, but the maggots of hate and fear, to keep it festering till the last maggot has been extracted and shoved into the ballot box. For those who haven't seen the movie, although I imagine everyone in the country has probably heard of the movie, can you explain why are you so critical of the film? And the reason I want you to explain it is because this is a film that was endorsed by the Prime Minister, by the Home Minister, by practically every minister. Screenings were held, and yet you believe that it is a movie that reopens wounds, that seeks to keep alive not the patient, but the maggots of hate and fear. What is it about this film that has really made you so strongly critical of it? Please explain.
First of all, Karan, I must explain that in that particular piece, that particular article of mine, uh, it's not so much the movie which is the subject of my article, as the aftermath of the movie, and the manner in which the movie was used by the government and certain other agencies as Islamophobic propaganda. Having said that, Having said that, the movie itself, it pretends to be a historical movie based on a historical series of events, which was the exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits from Kashmir in the 90s. It pretends to be that. That is the garb of respectability which that movie dons in order to sell itself to the viewer. Unfortunately, and here is where my criticism comes in, unfortunately, it distorts history. It is not faithful to historical events or historical accounts. Of course, any historical movie needs to be fictionalized to a certain extent. But you fictionalize characters, you fictionalize dialogue, etc. You don't fictionalize history itself, because that amounts to distorting history. And that is what this particular movie does. And it gives the game away in the disclaimer which appears on the screen right at the beginning. I'll just read out the disclaimer, it's just one line. It says, this film does not claim accurateness or factuality of historic events. What does that mean? It is essentially saying that we are not subscribing to or adhering to the facts of history in making this movie.
And
Now,
yet, the truth is, this was a film that was promoted almost personally by the Prime Minister, by several members of the government. And yet, it is a movie that conveys hatred of Muslims in Kashmir. That's what it propagates. What does it tell you about the Prime Minister? What does it reveal of the Prime Minister when he became someone who promoted this film? And by the way, what does it tell you of his aesthetic judgment? Because in terms of narrative structure and in terms of character development, this film is almost deficient.
well, I don't know. I have my reservations about the Prime Minister's aesthetic judgment, other than the clothes which he wears. I don't know how much aesthetic judgment he exercises. But in this case, obviously, that the movie was milked for everything it was worth, because elections were due. I think it was the UP elections in 2022, which were in the offing. So the movie came in very handy to as propaganda. And it was not just the Prime Minister's endorsement. Endorsing a commercial venture by a prime minister, it leaves a bad taste in the mouth. But it was not just the prime minister's endorsement. Taking the cue from the prime minister, the whole official apparatus went wild in trying to promote this movie. 7 states, I recollect, made it tax free. All BJP ruled state. Holidays were declared for government servants to go and watch the movie. Free screenings were held in the legislatures for members of the Legislative Assembly to see the movie. RWAs and shopkeepers started collecting money to buy tickets for their members. Now, what it says about our government, about the prime minister, and about the kind of culture ecosystem we have now developed is self-evident. Especially, Karan, I'll come back to slightly to the lack of historicity of this particular movie. It completely exaggerates uh, the number of Kashmiri Pandits who had to flee. According to the movie, the about between 50,000 to 5 lakhs to 7 lakhs Kashmiri Pandits had to was the extent of the exodus from Kashmir. Now, it is doubtful, according to well-informed analysts, whether so many Kashmiri Pandits were there in Kashmir to begin with. According to the generally accepted figures, between 1 lakh to 1 lakh 35,000 Kashmiri Pandits left Kashmir at that time during the exodus. The movie says 4,000 Kashmiri Pandits were killed in the 90s, which is absolutely wrong. The official police figure, the J&K police figure, is 89. And even the Kashmiri Pandit Sangharsh Samiti of Kashmir has given the figure as 700. Incidents like Mr. Ganju's killing have been made blood curdling, absolutely without any facts. It was one incident shows Mr. Ganju being killed, his blood being mixed with rice, and Hindus being forced to eat that concoction. Now that is not true. Even his own relatives have said, we've never heard of this kind of thing. So it is a blatant, shameless attempt to stir up Islamophobia during a period when it suited the party in power.
You know, as I reflect on the interview we're doing, we're in danger of conveying the impression that yours collection of essays, and I'm going to hold up the book again, there it is, Holy Cows and Loose Cannons, is a very serious collection of essays. Actually, these are satirical, they are about our peccadilloes, and you've written them tongue in cheek. You've written them light-heartedly. And so let me pick up on something where you're actually having fun and convey the right impression, because otherwise we're conveying the impression that this is an extremely serious, almost
Which
academic book.
which would be which would be
The
it? Yeah.
title itself gives it away. It's about holy cows and loose cannons, and as you beautifully put it, the Duffer Zone Chronicles. You also believe, and this is the interesting satirical thing, that elections are a good thing, not because they produce a government, which they do, and we want our democracy to grow, but you think they're a good thing because they put black money to productive use. You write with your tongue firmly embedded in your cheek. Come the elections, and black money is unlocked and productively injected into the economy. Its use in elections is as diverse and ingenious as only an election in India can be. So, in a very real sense, you're applauding elections not because they further our democracy, but because they take black money out of the closet, shove it into the economy, and produce results, create jobs, sell things, and give people something to laugh and have fun about. That's an aspect of elections that I don't think I've ever read before.
Exactly. It's a very counterintuitive. My views on black money in elections, Karan, are counterintuitive. They do not aspire to be an authoritative assessment of what black money and elections do. It's a very counterintuitive kind of thing, but it's something I've thought of, and it makes a lot of economic sense, purely in terms of economics. Because, 50,000 crores is a reasonable sum. We have 543 constituencies, 10 candidates in each constituency, and each candidate spending 10 crores. It comes to about 50,000 crores. Now, this is money which is taken out from under the mattresses, from real estate, the black money which is just hoarded. It's finally put into productive use. It goes into the economy. It acts. It's more than the Manrega budget for many years. It's more than the Himachal Pradesh budget for the full year. It's equivalent to the Delhi budget. So it's a lot of money we're talking about.
And you believe that black money in elections is a good thing.
It does. I do. I do, purely in economic terms. I don't know how many economists will agree with me. It goes against everything they've been taught in Delhi School of Economics, or been told by the IMF or the World Bank. But just look at it this way, Karan. Where does this 50,000 crore goes? It's a redistribution of income also. It reduces inequality. It goes from the rich to the poor. And who are the poor? The poor are people who are used for electioneering. The poor are the people who are used for intimidating the voter, the goons, the tent maker, the guy who makes the banner. Just about these, the people in the lower levels of our societal hierarchy. I've
Absolutely.
calculated.
Those whom we otherwise ignore benefit during election time because they become the recipients of the black money that comes out of the closet and fuels the election campaign.
Quite right. They come into their own. Liquor sales go up. Aam Aadmi caps go up. Aam Aadmi brooms go up. Helicopters are hired. I calculated, I don't know, economists won't agree with me, but my calculation is, if even half of this 50,000 crores goes into hiring these various categories of people, we are creating more than 800 million man days. Yeah?
You're taking me to a point where we were almost likely to say black money zindabad.
Black money is in the bar. In fact, the election commission should encourage this by in elections. No white money in elections. Use black money. Take it all out.
Finally, Avay Shukla, you say of yourself, I'm a congenital dog lover. Is your dog your first love? And if the answer is yes, what does your wife think of him? And what does your wife think of you?
we, you know, uh, uh, we've always been a dog family, Karan, right from my childhood. And ever since I got married, my wife is as fond of dogs as I am. So are my kids. Right, we've been through the whole gamut of dogs: bull terriers, bulldogs, German shepherds, spaniels, golden retrievers, labradors. These days, we have an indie. An indie is basically a stray dog from the streets, which my elder son picked him up from Gurgaon when he was driving back from office one day. He saw this little 2 week old pup in danger of being run over in Golf Course Road. He picked him up, and ever since then, he's been with us. So we are completely dog lovers. We love each other as much as we love the dog. And I know, Karan, you are not a dog lover.
No, I
Uh,
have to admit to that fact. Dogs are not necessarily my best friends.
I know you, but I have nothing against that. You are totally entitled. It's a personal choice. Though I must remind you that not having single malts or not having a good cigar after dinner is also a personal choice. But you're missing out on a lot.
Absolutely. Let me show you. I would enjoy a single malt and a cigar after dinner. And why only after dinner? I'd like one before dinner too.
Or before an interview.
Avay Shukla, at that point where we are laughing and having fun, I'm going to hold up a copy of your book again. There it is, Holy Cows and Loose Cannons, the Duffer Zone Chronicles. And let me tell you, this book is like the laughter that you heard from Avay a moment ago. It is a most enjoyable read. Of course, it has serious points. Of course, it has some very thoughtful points, which are almost verging on the philosophical, but it's written tongue in cheek. And that's why I recommend this book to you. It's delightful reading. Avay Shukla, thank you very much for talking to me. Take care, stay safe, and give your dog a pet from my side.
I will. I will. And Karan, think about keeping a dog again the next time you have your single malt.
The only
Thank
problem
you.
is, if I were to keep a dog, it would be a case, as many people would say, of a dog keeping a dog, and that may not necessarily work.
Thank you, Karan. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Avay. Thank you very much indeed.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.